Christelle Nadia. This is my podcast. It is in English and in French. In English, the podcast is every Tuesday and every Thursday. In French, it is miante, lundi et vendredi. So Monday and Friday. In today's episode, miante, let's talk about walking. Miante. One of my favorite books is Haruki Murakami, What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. Haruki Murakami. Miante, that book, I listened to it first. As I told you in one of my first episodes, Martha Nussbaum, the professor at Chicago University. I was reading one of her interviews over 15 years ago, and she was saying that she loved listening to audiobooks when exercising. And when she said that, because I have a lot of respect for her, I said to myself, if she does that, it's okay to listen to books. So one of the first books that I listened to was Haruki Murakami, What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. It is a book about his love for marathons, something that we have in common, about running, but it's also about life, of course, and about writing, So we have those two have things in common, writing and running. I can't run miente. So that's what the title of this episode is, What I Talk About When I Talk About Walking. Because it's also a way for me to tell you more about me, about my disability, and about why, despite the fact that I can't run, I have done 3 marathons, miente. 3 marathons. I've told the story before. I've been disabled since I was 1 month old. I was born in Cameroon, and 1 month after my birth, they realized that there was something wrong with my leg. Meliorastosis, officially, but is it that? We don't know. It makes my tissues very, very hard. So my leg, as I grew older, became shorter. I walked until I was 9 years old. Then the gap between the two legs became too big. I walked with crutches until I was over 30, even though doctors told my parents, and when I was about 9, that they had to make the decision to cut the leg and to put a prosthetic leg on. But it was never done. Complicated story. I've talked about it in French. Not yet completely. It's a process, That's what I'm doing this podcast. We take it nice, slow, and easy. Lento, miente. So I never learned to deal with this. This story was never really, I'm going to use the word acknowledged. It was never part of the official family story. It was something in the background, on the margins. Disability was always my shit. It was something that I had to do my best not to bother others with, especially not people from my intimate circle. Even as a child, I knew it. They never sat me down and said, don't bother us with your leg, with the fact that you can't walk, with the fact that you would never ever be able to run. But I got the message. And the message wasn't subtle, miente. It was upfront, and it was very, very violent. It had to do with the silence. It had to do with the anger, with the absence, and with certain words that were used on the cursed child. Remind me of Harry Potter in a little bit. The cursed child, the sorcerer child. All of those words used to describe me and my disability. I loved the movie. I need to read the book, My Left Foot, with Daniel Day-Lewis. movie that I saw once and I could never see it again. It touched a nerve. And Daniel Day-Lewis in My Left Foot had a family, loving parents, understanding parents. And still for him, it was unbelievably hard. Ireland, it was the 60s or something like that. Tough situation. So imagine Cameroon, disability. And imagine me, because this episode is about walking. What he said about the child who can't walk, who wants to run, who loves sports but can't do it. So for me, I had to deal with all of those things on my own. My medical history was unknown to me. My disability was never really discussed. I was the child, When we go to the hospital I had multiple surgeries in France. There were never conversations about the surgeries. I was just dropped at the hospital. I would find myself on the surgery table, and that was it. The woman who gave birth to me would disappear. My dad was never really there because traditional African dad, and he saw his role to be the provider. Of course, it was an excuse, but he came maybe twice during that whole time, and it was very, very difficult for him to see me in a wheelchair and to understand that this was something that his money couldn't fix. And it was something I was going to have to deal with for the rest of my life. My dad was very much aware of his environment. So that's the thing. That's the context. African context, Cameroonian context. All of those stereotypes, popular. It's not just Africa. Witchcraft, curses. I always talk to you about Jean-François Bayard. The banality of African societies. Very, very banal. Awful, but the stigma around disabilities is an African thing. It's very prevalent in African because culture, the African identity, which doesn't exist, it exists in the eyes of the others. It's going to be the excuse to justify that. Oh, we don't know how to deal with that. It's all culture, whatever. So I leave Cameroon to go to New York. I'm 14. I'm on my crutches, And when I get to the master school in Dubster in New York, it's obvious that there's a problem. It's obvious because accessibility is a problem. It's a private school. Going around is very, very difficult. Walking. They make the decision to put the burden on me to ask for help during snow days. I was living in a dorm and I was the one who had to ask for help. I was the child coming from Cameroon, learning to speak English, being placed in an American upstate New York contest, and I was the one who had to basically deal with my disability. Go there to ask people, can you help me? I did it once, I did it twice. The gaze of others, how the fact that I couldn't walk was being perceived, and I stopped walking. I wanted to run. Long distances, that's my jam, because I think that with long distances, resilience makes a difference. And the fact that I'm stubborn makes a difference. Walking. So I stay, it doesn't go well, Then I go to North Philmont Hammond in Massachusetts. The campus is even bigger. They have 2 campuses at the time. At the time, NMH, North Philmont Hammond had 2 campuses. Walking, it's a problem. But I spent 2 years there. And it's on me. I never had this sense that it was a community issue. It was on me. It was my crap. I said that in an episode 2 weeks ago, with African with disabilities. We start African with disability with very, very low expectations. I talk about the hard bigotry of low expectations. Then you go to America when you are lucky, as I was. But you get to America and the expectations are just unrealistic because people don't want to treat you like the people with disabilities locally. You come from somewhere else. And when you are like me, you go to a privileged environment, they feel like, no, we're not going to give her a head start. In college, I go to college. I go to UNC, the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. The campus is very, very big. But then the Americans with Disability Act was already there. They put me with seniors and juniors in apartments. I couldn't be I couldn't be with freshmen or people of my age in a high rise. Accessibility. That's the way UNCC deal with it. But there's never in my mind, because of the way I was raised and because of the questions that the woman who gives birth to me never ask, they're thinking that I have some rights. Never. To me, because I can't walk, I have to manage that. I have to accept it mentally. All the obstacles, the disadvantages are my shit. People can be nice. And when they're nice, as I talked about in last week's episode, Miente, comes with a high price, with expectations that aren't always savory. Walking, Miente. I can't walk. I saw with Cameroon. It's hard. The childhood. The woman who gives birth to me has 4 other kids. When we were playing, it was never that sense that they had to slow down. I was the one who had to make the effort and not to slow them down. If I couldn't do that, then I would just have to be on the side. The master school, that's very New York. Walking is my shit. Snow days, a lot of snow days. Upstate New York, Miente. It's my shit. I have to ask for help, asking help. Black kid, African kid, girl, gender, all of those questions. But again, it's on me. It's never a communal thing, the school thing. Of course, it causes problem, but the root is never disability. It's always the kid psychologically, something else. Walking, miente. What I talk about when I talk about walking. I go to NMH, not Philmont Hammond, even bigger campus. They have 2 campuses, miente. Walking. More snow days because Massachusetts, of course. What do? Same shit. 2 years. Boom, 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 boom. But it's on me. It's never this sense that is something that all the school has to deal with. It's on me to deal with it the way I want to deal with it. But that's it. That's what it is. Miente. Walking. Aoki Murakami says that a gentleman never says what he does to stay in shape. For the longest time, with my crutches, felt like I had no excuses not to do what other people were doing. And if I couldn't do that, it was on me. It wasn't disability. It was something that I had to overcome. My disability was something that I had to overcome. You can't run, okay, you're gonna walk. You can't walk. Tough shit, that's you. You're not that good. Denial, lack of disability awareness, lack of empathy even for myself. That vision of that is you, it's your mind. That's very, I was going to say African and Cameroon, but many people do that. Oh, we are all disabled. Sure, we can't walk, but I have something else that is a problem with me. We all have a disability. And I'm like, guys, stop it. That to me is one of the most insensitive things that people can say. We all have a disability. No, we don't. We are not all black. We're not all women. We are not all people with a disability. Stop that. It's not true. I'm not saying that my physical disability is tougher. I'm saying that it poses real questions of access that I can't just figure out on my own. That have an impact on my life. So people can't just say, oh, we're all disabled, blah, blah, blah. No, we're not all black. We're not all Africans. We're not all minorities. There are issues here that we can't just poo-poo by saying we're all the same. No. Ask us questions of stigma and everything else. Disability matters. Walking me a day. So when I did started my surgeries to be able to wear a prosthetic leg, I couldn't just amputate the leg because I waited too long. So it took 2 surgeries, very, very difficult surgeries. The first surgery, over 16 hours. Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. Very, very tough. I have an artificial hip. Walking. I remember the day of the surgery, and I was, there was the intern of the pediatrician. My doctor was a pediatrician because, you only find those type of malformation with kids. Usually parents make the decision to cut the leg and the child has a chance to grow up normally. So the intern of my doctor, I say to him, oh yeah, I'm going to be able to run. And he's like, how? I was on my hospital bed about to go to the surgery and I was saying, I think that after the surgery, you won't even have to cut. You would just be able to put the prosthetic leg and I will be able to run. And he's baffled by my lack of disability awareness, my lack of self-awareness. He's baffled by my denial. And he says to me, how? And the doctor looks at me and said, because he knew that for me it was a way to convince myself to go through the surgery. It was going to take a long time and there was a chance he was going to have to cut the whole leg. And he just go to he said, no, don't say anything, let her deal with this. Walking, Miante. Walking. So that surgery after that, then Miante, I have to accept that I have to cut the leg. Knowing that even if you get a chance to grow a prosthetic leg, the chances of you even walking normally, because after I get over the fact that I won't be able to run, I have to accept the fact that even if I am able to walk, I'm more likely than not going to have to use a cane. So in my head, I'm like, why did I go to a 16 hours operation, which hurt like hell? What is going to be the difference between that and walking with crutches? My life is already upended. And now I have to accept that I won't even be able to walk normally, even if I walk slowly. Walking, niente. I have to give up the Murakami shit. I can't do that. I can't run. The goal for me was, as Oprah Winfrey, to do a marathon before I turned 40. So when I realized that, oh my God, I'm not even going to be able to walk normally, I have to think to myself, oh my God, I have to give up so much. And the denial, walking. I can't run, walking, all the thing, childhood, your parents are not there. Nobody's there. Walking. So I go through the amputation. Yeah, the leg, they cut it very, very high. It takes me over a year to be able to work or to wear a prosthetic leg. I have no muscle on the right leg, the amputated leg. It takes me a long time. And I can't, for a long time, I keep walking with my prosthetic leg, with my crutches. I can't do it. Mentally, I'm a mess. Walking, I have to talk about everything else associated with that, to deal with the absence, with the silence, with what isn't said, with all of the things that I've been talking to you about, The fact that I'm still dealing with all of that alone, and with the fact that it's not even talked about. I have to talk about it. Walking. People are not looking at me weird anymore because my malformation, my deformation is no longer visible, but they see it. I'm not even able to go somewhere where I can practice, take the time to recover and do the walking thing because there's no time. And it's my shit. It remains my shit. There's nobody there. People are just like, yeah. My disability is a little bit like cosmetic surgery for my family. In quote unquote. Who is she kidding? She's over 30. Why can't she live with it already? She's spending a lot of that money so that she can, look normal. She's not going to be able to run. She's not going to be able to walk. Why is she upending her life? Why is she doing this to us? That's the way they saw it. It was cosmetic surgery. Me getting a prosthetic leg. And seeing that, even though there was already distance between me and them, made it very, very hard for me to walk, niente. Because as I was making progress, I have to deal with my denial. I have to deal with my childhood, the truth about my childhood. I had to deal with the truth about my parents. I had to deal about the way the woman who gave birth to me sees me. I have to deal with the way her other kids see me. And walking made it unavoidable for me to talk about all of that, niente. Trauma, tragedies, abuse, all those type of things, walking. So I walked my first marathon, 2022 Barcelona. I didn't finish, of course. It's impossible for me to do 26 miles. I'm still thinking, I'm still going to try. I've done 3 marathons already, niente. 3. My record was last year, the French Marathon pour tous, Marathon for all, during the Olympics, niente. I did the 10K and I made it. It took me over 5 hours to do 5K. To do 10K. It took me over 5 hours, but I made it. And as I was doing that, I kept talking to myself about all of what I'm talking to you in this podcast. My dad, what has happened to me, the denial. It was a non-story. Have you heard of it? No. I've done 3 marathons thinking that by trying to do the impossible, by trying to walk the impossible, 42 Ks, 26.2 miles, that people will talk about all of what I'm talking to you about in this podcast. No interest. People are just like, well, what does it matter? It's not even a human story. I was certain that by seeing me, prosthetic leg, my story, the leg, everything else, my dad, that people will say, what happened? She has done all that. She is trying to walk the marathon even though she can't. She's a lawyer, member of the DC bar. She used to be on the foreign attorney list of the Brussels bar. She has written books. We need to talk about this story. People are able to. It doesn't matter. What I talk about when I talk about walking niente is the same thing that I'm talking to you about in this podcast. How hard it is to make people see that African lives matter and that Africans with disability stories are amazing stories. Amazing. So yes, I'm very much a fan of Haruki Murakami. You need a mantra when you try to do the impossible. What I say to myself when I walk, I think about my dad a lot. I think about writing, surprisingly. I say to myself, this is going to make a beautiful story. Walking so much is going to make a beautiful story. Haruki Murakami, as this, it says, Pain is unavoidable. Suffering is optional. Pain is unavoidable. Suffering is optional. Niente. Unfortunately for me, given my upbringing, the fact that I was the queen of denial, the fact that I had to swallow things, keep them inside, I learned to love suffering a little bit too much. I'm trying to switch that. Walk more so I can talk to you about that, so I can talk to the world about it, Mr. Miente. And hopefully, I will write a memoir that is as good as Haruki Murakami, what I talk about when I talk about running, Miente. Walking. The toughest thing when you walk is what you talk about to yourself, how you deal with everything that is associated with your disability, how you deal with what happened to your dad, how you deal with all the obstacles and move forward. My American dad used to say to me all the time, the best way to drive is forward. If you keep looking back, it's very, very difficult. It makes it a lot harder. You have to move forward. You have to move forward. Miante, thank you for listening to the episode. Don't forget to subscribe, Miante. You know, the episodes in English are Tuesdays and Fridays in French. Lundi et vendredi. And subscribe, Miante. I'm on TikTok also. You have all the links for my social media. You can write to me. The email is in the description of this podcast. And yes, share Miante episodes. Help us, Miante. See you next Tuesday. On reste ensemble.